much, Angie, Andrew, Jonathan, and Matt, singing one of my most favorite Faith Rivera songs, God Is. If you're not familiar with Faith Rivera, I highly recommend that you check her out. We will be bringing her in concert. You're not going to want to miss her because that was beautiful. Thank you so much, Angie. And so as we move into our conversation this morning about spiritual guidance and personal responsibility, one of the places where that spiritual guidance starts is remembering that God is right where we are. That's the guidance that we get, that God is right where we are. And of course, the question then is, what do we do with that? Where do we take that? How do we act on it? And so Reverend Karen talked about in the last couple of weeks, she talked about the power of the word, understanding the power of the creative word, and that word is constantly being spoken in creation, and it is spoken in our own lives when we speak the word. And then she went on to talk about, then we need to also listen. We're listening to our inner guidance. We're listening to our inner intuition. And today, we're going to talk about speaking the truth. As we know the power of the word, and as we hear and listen to our own inner guidance, then the next piece is, right, to take responsibility for speaking the truth. For speaking the truth in our lives, sharing that, expressing that with power and conviction, with openness. Ernest Holmes says this. He says, and this comes from our Declaration of Principles, we believe that any person may become a revealer of truth who lives in close contact with the indwelling God. Right, as Angie so beautifully sung to us this morning from Faith Rivera, God is. As we know this, as we know that God is when we are at work, that God is when we are in our relationship, that God is when we're driving down the street, that God is present as us in every single thing that we do, then we are in close contact with that indwelling God. And we reveal that truth. Some of that truth we reveal by our lives. Some of that truth we reveal by how we speak and how we talk about things and how we share. Now, I am one who is very fond of speaking the truth. I think speaking the truth is very important. I was not always that way. Not by any means. I was the peacemaker in the family. I was the one who poured oil on the troubled waters. Or I was simply the one who hid in the bedroom as all things were breaking loose in the house. And so we all have reasons why we don't speak the truth. So I'd like to just hear from a few of you. Why is it that what keeps us from speaking the truth, from sharing what's going on, from telling that? So who wants to share? Raise your hand. We got right here. Please make sure that you say your name so everybody can hear you.
Linda, and not wanting to hurt feelings.
Yeah, not wanting to hurt someone's feelings. We've got some back there too, a couple on the other side over there. Not wanting to hurt someone's feelings is a big reason why we don't share the truth.
Olga, I don't want to be rejected.
Yeah, we don't want to be rejected. Good.
And Peter, sometimes we just want to be loved.
Sometimes we just want to be loved. All right, right behind you. I saw there was a hand back there. Did you have a hand back there? No, okay. And then there was one right here.
I'm Cleo, and sometimes the truth causes conflict, and people don't want conflict.
Yeah, we want to avoid conflict at all costs, don't we? Why do we want to avoid conflict? Because when conflict happens around us, we imagine that our conflict, we instantly see conflict exactly the way that we had it when we were children. So when conflict happens, we instantly become 6 years old, and we behave exactly the way we learned how to behave as a 6-year-old in a way that we thought would keep us safe, whatever that is. And so part of this learning how to speak the truth, right, is to understand conflict differently and to remember none of us are 6 anymore, right? We're not that person anymore. Good.
Speaking of 6 years old, I'm Adora, and a couple weeks ago I had an aha that because I was molested at around 6 years old, and the person who molested me listened to me, my voice became dangerous if people listened to me.
Yes.
And so it's so interesting this is the topic today because I'm all about listening to that little girl and everything else that this young woman has to say.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. You bet we get lots of messages that it's not okay, and that being seen can be dangerous, and lifting our voices up can put us into jeopardy. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
I'm Mark, and for me, what keeps me from speaking the truth is feelings of less than, and that I'm not worthy to speak my truth.
Yeah, good. Thank you. It's coming around over this direction, over this way. Good. All right, we'll get a couple more, and then we've got one over here. Yeah, thanks for your sharing and your honesty, right?
I'm Connie, and sometimes I exaggerate because I want to look good, and the exaggeration is often not the truth.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Let's just look at Facebook pages and all the, right? Thank you so much for sharing that. Because we feel the need to build ourselves up, partly because we feel less than, right? And so we make it bigger and brighter and whatever. So, good.
I'm done. Fear of punishment.
Fear of punishment. Oh my gosh. One of the most challenging things we do to our children is we teach them it's not okay to say no. And do you know that when they're 2 and 3 and they're the most annoying, well, until they become 14, and then they're really annoying because they have to go through it all over again. But do you know that their project is to learn how to say no? That is their project. That is developmentally required to learn how to find your voice, to say what's okay and what's not okay. And we are consistently punished and told that we're not allowed to say no. We're either bratty or, God forbid, we're a woman. We should learn how to be nice. All of those messages when we should all be raising spirited children. Of course, it's exhausting, but it's worth it.
So I think sometimes you mentioned that we can speak the truth through our living, our lives. Well, sometimes we get so used to living our lives one way, but then our inner truth changes.
Yes.
And when that changes, it can be very scary because we've been in a comfort zone for so long. So I know from personal experience that I had to accept my own truth so that I could eventually start living that truth. And
Beautiful.
Thank you, because you helped me with that.
Thank you. Thanks, Lauren. Absolutely.
And I'm Lauren.
Yay, thanks, Lauren. I'm happy to help you with that. And and not only can it be uncomfortable for us, it can be uncomfortable for others too. When we are like going along, and we have all the agreements with everybody about how we're supposed to behave, or from our families to all our friends, and we have all these agreements about how we're supposed to be, and then all of a sudden our truth comes up, and we're like, wait, I don't want to have that negative conversation anymore. What? Oh, I don't know that I want to go down that road anymore. What? And so it can be uncomfortable for us, and it can be very uncomfortable for others. Okay, one last one.
I'm Corinne, and sometimes you don't say the truth because you're scared of what other people will say back to you.
Yes, isn't that the truth, right? We're scared of what they're going to say back. It's either going to create conflict or rejection or hurt feelings or, all of those things. And so speaking the truth, so we want to actually look at speaking the truth from a couple of different places. We're going to actually look at speaking the truth from the human perspective. What does that mean? And then we want to talk about speaking the truth from a spiritual point of view. While they are similar, they're actually different. And the biggest thing we want to remember, I just want everybody to breathe. We're not 6, and your parent is not in the room. Well, maybe yours is, sorry, but or your grandparent is, but right? I mean, isn't that what we instantly go to that? We can so easily go to that place. So the very first thing we have to do is to learn how to speak our truth, to find that place within us, that place of confidence and power and presence that says, no, really, this is how it is for me. This is my experience. This This is what's up for me. This is what's important to me. These are the things that I value. And these are the things that I want to say out loud. Speaking my truth is hugely important. One of the things that didn't come up here at the second service, came up at the first service, in addition to all these beautiful sharings, was the word vulnerability. That sometimes when we speak our truth, we feel very vulnerable, right? And partly what we're vulnerable to is what's going to come back, what somebody's going to say, or whether or not they're going to reject us, or whether or not we're going to hurt their feelings. And yet speaking our truth is so critically important. It's psychologically and emotionally healthy to learn how to speak our truth. And we want to find that inner place, right? We're talking about inner guidance, that inner place where we know the truth about ourselves enough that we begin to step out on that limb and say, I know, really, I need to share this, whatever this is, with you. The very first thing that happens when we're willing to speak the truth is we actually open a door. That vulnerability, that very vulnerability, opens a door to connection, doesn't it? It opens the door to the possibility where maybe I'm actually letting you see something about me that you wouldn't otherwise know, right? We're actually sharing with each other, oh, that thing doesn't really feel good to me, or I'm really excited about that, and I'm kind of afraid to tell you how excited I am about it, or whatever those things are. They may make us vulnerable, but in that vulnerability is that place of openness where connection is possible. Now, the other side of that coin, of course, is that we have study after study after study after study that talks about how important it is to speak your truth and what happens when we don't. Well, all of those truths that we're speaking, so much of it is about our emotional experience that we're having in the moment. And when we don't speak that out, we don't release some of that in a healthy way, where does all that emotion go? Right into our bodies. Unexpressed emotions is one of the leading causes of illness, because it has to go somewhere. All of that energy has to go somewhere. And if it doesn't go outward, it goes inward. And it can become depression, unexpressed emotions, stuffed and stuffed and stuffed and stuffed, become depression. It lodges in our bodies as all kinds of symptoms and ultimately as illness. And so learning to speak our truth begins to allow that energetic to come outward. Now, we teach a lot of communications classes here. We just got finished teaching a conflict management class, or how to deal with difficult people. Remembering that speaking our truth can be challenging. And this isn't about just blowing up all over somebody, but it's about that healthy, powerful, sane way of saying, this is what's so for me. This is my experience. This is what's going on for me. And we either need to work it out, or I need for you to at least see how it is for me so that we can have that connection, right? So speaking our truth. Buried emotions causes illness. Now, the other side of that coin is unexpressed emotions or overexpressed emotions. I love that. Thank you so much, Connie, for sharing about exaggeration. Overexpressed emotions, what does it do? Well, it just kills our relationships, doesn't it? That's the fastest way to kill a relationship. Don't be honest in it. And I don't mean just honesty as in integrity, right? That's the first, that's like a baseline. But don't be honest about what's going on, how you're feeling, how things are sitting, what you're excited about, what you're loving, what you're not loving. Being willing to share those things in appropriate ways, to speak our truth, and in appropriate ways. This doesn't mean we're slinging arrows and and just blasting it out. But we must find that place within ourselves, the courage to speak our truth. Now, one of the reasons that this is so important is because while we all believe in telepathy, most people cannot read our minds. I know. I find this very annoying. I don't understand why you can't just figure it out. Can't you just figure it out? Surely you actually knew what I meant, even though I didn't say it. Or even though I didn't say it that way. You must have known what I meant. Because we love that. You know, we love that. We're very intuitive. We have lots of moments where we have those experiences. We know who's calling us when we pick up the phone and all of that stuff. And we can't count on it. We're not yet mind melding. We're not yet at the point of mind melding. So actually speaking up is so important. One of the things I notice for myself, it always makes me laugh that people don't believe me, but I'm a massive introvert. And so I have this incredibly rich internal life, and then I don't realize that you haven't heard any of it. It's like, oh, wait, I didn't share that part. Oh. But I'm sure you're just like plugged in. Aren't we just plugged in together? Well, we may be plugged in together. Do you know what I mean? We may actually be plugged in together in a really intuitive way, but sometimes it like actually has to come out of your mouth to say it. So until we have mastered telepathy and mind melding, we actually have to speak. Of course, the other side of that coin is that they get to speak too, right? That's the other side of that. But that's what creates connection, isn't it? That's what creates understanding. That's what allows us to move beyond seeming differences, that allows us to really see someone else and really allow ourselves to be seen in a way that allows people to connect with us. So, my experience, however, is that often speaking the truth looks like this, right? This is often what speaking the truth looks like or feels like, and so we avoid it because we equate speaking the truth with being in conflict. Now, I would submit to you that the reason for this is because we're not actually speaking the truth at this point. We're sharing our feelings. We're sharing our own perspective. And we might be sharing from a triggered place. We might be sharing from an emotionally reactive place as opposed to from a healthy, conscious place. We might be just blasting off because it feels that way, because we want to speak our truth. Oh yeah, that's the email that after you send, you go, maybe I shouldn't have done that, right? I know we've all done it. That text, that email that makes it so easy to blast it off. And then we think, or in the middle of the night, we wake up and we think, maybe that's not what they meant at all. Maybe I should have asked them a question first. Right? We all do this. And so in speaking our truth, we begin to recognize that when somebody is speaking their truth to us, we have to find that balance point, that fine line between this is actually my truth, my perspective. I want to share with you what's really going on with me. I think it's really important for you to know that this is how I'm feeling about this. That's very different than, oh my God, I can't believe you did that, and how horrible, and this is the terrible thing, and ain't it awful? And I can feel like I'm speaking my truth when in fact I'm coming from those deep buried emotions, that old place. And so sometimes this is why it looks that way. And you'll notice then both of us are 6, as opposed to being spiritually mature, healthy, grown-up people. Now, I want to say again, this does not negate the fact that these spiritually mature, healthy, grown-up conversations we need to have them. We need to learn how to have them. We need to become comfortable with having them, which is one of the reasons why Doreen and Aaron are doing these partnership classes. We have communications classes. We talk about it in a lot of our training, our Science of Mind training, because it's so important to know the difference between when we are unconsciously projecting venting, shall we say spewing, and when we are consciously sharing what's really going on with us. So we do actually need to learn to speak our truth. Now, the other thing is this is my experience. I'm hoping that it's your experience too, in that the more that I do that spiritual growth, the more spiritual growth I do, the more I'm willing to sit and listen to the divine presence within me, the more I'm willing to be present to myself, the more my truth and the spiritual truth actually morph together. The less distance there is between those two. Because ultimately, what we want to do is we want to recognize that what we are speaking into the world is the life that we're creating. What we are speaking into the world is the life that we are creating. And so we can actually hear. We can hear the life we're creating. We can hear the beliefs that we have. We can hear the thoughts and feelings that we have about ourselves and about others by listening to what we say when we say, I'm just telling you my truth. I'm just going to speak my truth. I'm just going to tell you how it is for me. One of the things that we do in that, or can do in that, is that we can claim our limitations. Well, I'm just going to tell you my truth. I've never been good at math. I'm just going to tell you how it is, I had that past. I had that experience in my past. And so what more I'm just sharing with you that this is how it is for me. Do you see? You see how that can become a limitation. And again, these are fine lines, and they require us to be awake. They require us to be conscious, and to be conscious of ourselves and conscious of what's going on with us, and not fool ourselves, and not pretend to be confused, and not pretend to not know, but to what? To listen to that inner guidance, to listen to that inner voice, so that we don't claim our limitations. Ernest Holmes says this: at all times we are freely creating the life we live. The ability consciously and specifically to better our lives depends on the degree to which we are able to believe in our basic concepts of the nature of life. Our words and the things that we say under the umbrella of "this is my truth" will tell us whether or not we believe those things that we say we believe. Because we can have a basic understanding that life is for us, that the universe is here to support us, that love is the answer, that we're all in this together. We can say all of those things and believe them, and absolutely believe them to be true from an intellectually, and maybe even starting to drip down into a real place. But when we begin to hear our language of telling the truth, and we find that is different than those truths I just listed, do you see, we're creating our life out of something other than what we say we believe. Does that make sense to you? Yeah. And so we want to pay attention to these things when we speak our truth. We want to pay attention to it, and we want to begin to have discipline around it. We want to be conscious of what is going on. So I love this, right? Hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. Often this is, they're just sticking their head in the sand. No, this is what we teach, taking responsibility for what comes in, and for what comes out. Right? That's taking responsibility for that. Am I going to listen to the worldly wisdom? Am I going to listen to all those people, yada, yada, yammer, yammer, blah, 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 out there? Am I going to watch all of this fear-mongering and all of this stuff that's going on? And am I going to speak it? Or am I going to refrain? Am I going to seek to be conscious about what's coming out of my mouth? And so part of that is being conscious of when I feel like, wait, I think I'm a little triggered here. Maybe I should wait and not be so triggered before I speak. Part of it's being conscious of, oh, I'm feeling really vulnerable. What if they don't like me after I tell them this? Okay, but by God, I'm going to do it anyway. Do you see? I have the opportunity. Each of us, we have that opportunity, and that becomes so important to pay attention to what's coming out of our mouth. Now, I differentiated earlier between speaking my truth and speaking the truth. Because my truth always comes from where I'm standing, right? My truth comes from where I'm standing, how I'm looking at it, from my past, from my experience, from my perceptions, from how I'm taking it in, from everything that I'm filtering out, right? I could be filtering out all the people who are loving me, and I could be focusing on the one person who's not, and then I feel like I have to speak my truth about that. Do you see? So my truth has to do with where I'm standing and my perception and my experience, and comes really from my psychological, emotional, and human experience of reality. But I think there's another truth that we speak. I'm calling this the truth with a capital T. Do you see, my truth is not true for you. My truth is only true for me. So I can't sit down with you and say, here's my truth. I'm going to share with you the truth, and have it be my truth, and assume that you see it the same way. Do you see? My truth is not the truth. It's just how it is for me, which is true. But then we have the truth. Right? The truth, speaking the truth, is allowing ourselves to see and speak from that spiritual place, from where we see and speak about the truth of who we are and of who the other person is, and of what is really going on from our spiritual perspective. The truth, speaking the truth, we can only speak in love, because that's where that truth comes from. It's based in the very love of the universe. The truth is always focused from a spiritual point of view, and it's always about spiritual truths. And therefore, the truth is not subject to anyone's personal opinion, perception, or past. The truth is always expansive for life and expansive for growth. And it is for the light and the greatness of the person or situations involved. Always the truth. So I might share my human experience. I'm right now feeling uncomfortable because I have to share with you that whatever it is, I feel a little vulnerable. I don't know how you're going to experience. But I also want to say that the truth is I'm spiritually supported. And I know that the universe always meets me in love. Do you see? I can tell my human truth. And when it's embedded in a spiritual reality, it lifts me and it lifts the other person. And so when we focus on that truth, when we focus on the spiritual truth of who we are focusing on what God is and where God is in any given moment, in ourselves or in another person. Ernest Holmes says this: there is within every individual which partakes of the nature of the universal wholeness, and insofar as it operates, is God. Insofar as it is active and we are consciously aware of it and we are present to it, it is God as us. Every individual partakes of this. And so when there is something within us that knows this truth, you see, this is that part of us that enables us to say, well, the truth is that thing that's happening, that thing I see on the news that's happening over there in a foreign country is frightening to me, and I can be angry, and I can want to withdraw, and I can blame. Or I can see it from a spiritual point of view. Oh, wait, there's wholeness there too. Maybe there's something more going on. Maybe I can see the spiritual truth without allowing the fear to run me. Do you see? So when we understand that every individual partakes of the nature of universal wholeness, we can see the God presence. And then we can decide from which truth are we going to speak. I remember years ago when I was really in the process of healing my relationship with my father. As many of you know, he's passed away. He died a practicing alcoholic. He was a rageaholic alcoholic my whole growing up, my whole life. And I had to find a way to speak my truth to him in the context of speaking the truth, in the context of speaking the spiritual truth. And so I remember having the conversation with my father. I just love you. I just really see. I see who you are, and I see how much you have loved me. And I'm going to let you know that when I come visit, I'm going to visit for 4 days. Not any longer. And I'm going to go into my room at 8 o'clock at night, because after 8 o'clock, it doesn't feel good to me out here, because you know how that goes, right? And so it was a powerful thing to have that conversation with my dad. Not to make him wrong, not to blame him, not to need him to be any different, to take responsibility, to share my truth while being able to share the truth that I knew about him, was that he was a beautiful, magnificent child of God. And the truth is, he loved me. He just didn't know how to share it. He didn't know how to say it. He didn't know how to be it. But do you see, if I can't see with those spiritual eyes, then I'm stuck. And so when we can see that in ourselves and each other, we have the opportunity of sharing truth, deep and profound truth. This is who we are. I love that. You know, we're a drop in the ocean. We're a drop that has all the same, the same makeup as the ocean. And this is who we are. Each one of us, a being of love and light. And so ultimately, I think this is the only truth there is. This is the only truth about each one of us. You are a radiant, magnificent being of love and light. You are here to express the divine as only you can. This is the single thing that is the truth about you. Everything else will change. Everything else is based on the past. It's based on some label. It's based on an experience. It's based on some perception or experience of this reality. But it will change. That's the nature of this reality. It will either change in this lifetime, or it will change by the sheer fact that someday you will lay this body down. And you will no longer be subject to the gender that you are, or the color of the skin that you are, or the ethnicity that you are, or the height that you are, or the color of your hair that you grew up with, or any of those things. You will no longer be your zodiac sign. You will no longer be the child of the people that you were a child of in this lifetime. You will no longer be any of those things. But you will always be a radiant, magnificent being of love and light, whose sole purpose is to express life to the fullest extent that you possibly can. This is the truth. This is the truth with a capital T. And you see, when we know this truth about ourselves and about others, then we can take responsibility for being as conscious as we know how to be, to tell our personal truth within the context of the truth. Then we take responsibility for the energy that we bring into the room. We take responsibility for the energy that we bring into any conversation. We take responsibility for how we're showing up when we are telling truth, speaking truth. Do you see that my truth is nested inside the truth in as conscious a way as we possibly can? So here's a question for you this week as we ponder this speaking of the truth. Are you bringing light or darkness into the room? If your speaking the truth tends to bring darkness and heaviness into the room, not necessarily hurt, we can't take responsibility for how someone receives it, only how we deliver it. If we're bringing darkness into the room, it might be that our truth is coming from a triggered place. It might be that our truth is coming from our past. Or it might be that our truth is not embedded in the truth. And so this week, I really invite you to pay attention to this, to affirm that you can speak truth, that you can speak both your truth and the truth. And when you do that, you bring light into the room. You become the place of love and heart, the place of peace, the place of joy. You bring that with you wherever you go. So this week, let's practice it together. We'll practice speaking truth, my truth, in the context of the truth, and we'll be the light and peace in the world. Let us pray. So just inviting you to go within to that beautiful place, that place that knows the indwelling presence, that knows that God is. God is right where I am. God is right where you are. God is the very presence of life itself. And that life is love and joy and peace and beauty and wisdom and wholeness. That life is the life divine. And it is forever moving in, through, and as us, each one of us. Wherever we stand, God is. Wherever we speak, God is. Wherever we love, God is. Wherever we live, God is. And so this morning we align ourselves with the truth. This is the truth about each and every one of us. And nothing can change that or shake that. And as we stand on the light of that truth, then our truth flows. It flows with love. It flows with peace. It flows with connection. It flows without fear because we stand in the light of who we are. We cannot be rejected. There can be no hurt. There can be only that light that lifts us, connects us, and is us. And so with this truth, we allow ourselves to simply move into gratitude that we know it, that we live it, that we speak it, and that we be it. And with that, we say together, and so it is.